Hey everybody, and welcome to the day. My name is Mr. Martin, and I'm going to be your host just for a little while today. I'm just going to introduce what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Now, please note, I apologize for the fact that I'm not doing cool edited stuff with images. I'm currently working on an iPad situation. Once I get that all settled, or just get a new iPad, I'll be able to make things hopefully a little bit more visually interesting than just me as a little box down in the corner of a PowerPoint. But in other news, last week you guys looked at changes in the demographic makeup in a southern part of the city, the International District down to the south, and you understood why that change happened. Now, this week, what you're going to be doing is we're going to look at another change in the demographics of Seattle, and you're going to be, again, learning why that change happens, and you're going to be able to talk about it with a little less scaffolding from me, because you already know the formula. You already know how to talk about change, as I saw in your sample paragraphs that you gave to me last week. So here we go. What I want to do is I'm going to look at two maps, just like we did last week. Now, these are the same. They're from the same set as before, because for some reason in the earlier part of the 20th century, the 1900s, the city was keeping track of where certain populations lived, tended to be populations of color. And so that's why we have this information. And so this map is coming from that same collection. Okay, so here's a map for the Black population in Seattle in 1920. Okay, so this is about 2,800 people here in the city of Seattle. And you can see with the dots that they're kind of spread out around the city, kind of concentrated there in what is now the Central District, just east of downtown. Now, I want you to, I'm going to change the map, and I want you to see if you can identify any change in this map, okay? Notice anything different? And how is this map different from the first map? Now let's look at them side by side. Now, as you can see here, there's a pretty stark difference between these two maps. Now, this week and next week, we're going to be looking at why this change happens. Why is it that in map number one, there is a smaller group of people in the city, 2,894 on the left there in 1920, and then there is an explosion, a population explosion by the time 1960 rolls around, where we have 26,901 people. Now, there's probably a percentage number that I could apply to that, but I'm not a math teacher, so I don't know how to do that. But it's probably, there's lots of zeros in the number of percentage population change that this represents. So, but it's about 10 times. So there we see this massive influx of African Americans coming into Seattle. And so the question that we have for ourselves right here, the question that we're always asking in history is, why does this happen? Question mark. So we're going to be looking at that as to why there is this influx. Now, you might also be asking yourself, why are all of these African American families concentrated into one small part of the city? And as you look at the map, you can see that there's a couple of pockets around, but there's obviously one major pocket in the city. And we're not going to talk that much about that here in this class, because when you get into ninth grade over at West Seattle High School, you're going to be focusing in on that particular question. Okay, so you're going to be looking at some of this information again, and you're going to be answering that question. I want us to look at, why do all of these families suddenly come to Seattle? Then you'll look at, why are they in ninth grade? You'll look at, why are they all concentrated into one spot? All right, but before we start talking about why this happens, I need to go over just a couple of terms that you may or may not know, because I'm going to be referring to them a lot. Okay. The first one, I'm sure many of you already know. This word is migration, or to migrate. And to migrate simply means that something or someone is moving from one place to another. Migration is the root of the term immigration, where people are coming into a place from another country or region. There's also emigration. Emigration means to leave. That's with an E at the beginning of it. That means to leave a country or region and go to another place. So migration is really movement, okay? Now, people don't just move because I'm bored. I mean, some people do. You're in a city and you're a hipster, you need to go to some place that's a little bit more hip. However, usually there are factors that are going to cause people to move from one place to another. And as we just saw in that map, obviously there's a lot of Black families that had moved to Seattle. So they had migrated here. Well, I want to know, like, where did they migrate from? And why did they migrate? So we're going to look at a couple of different sort of angles of this question. Number one, we're going to be looking at push factors. And then number two, we're going to be looking at pull factors. So we're looking at push factors and pull factors. It's basically what it sounds like. People are being pushed out of a place. And at the same time, they might be pulled into another place. Rarely is migration just one or the other. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people are simply pushed, and then they're pushed into a region that they still don't have opportunities there. But in this case, when we're looking at why there's that change in the city of Seattle, we're going to be looking at both push factors and pull factors. Now, push factors include things like poverty. They include things like fear, especially fear from social or political or religious oppression, which is going to push people out. There might be a natural disaster in a particular region. I remember when Hurricane Katrina happened, we had people here in Seattle coming from New Orleans as they were waiting for life to get more stable back at home. And some of those folks ended up staying here. As students that moved here from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. So disasters can cause people to move, and just a lack of opportunity, in particular when it comes to jobs. And so, poverty and unemployment are kind of linked. But as we'll see, not always. You can be employed and still be really, really poor. But lack of opportunity and lack of employment can push people out of a region because there just isn't the opportunity for a successful life in that place. Now, what pulls people into areas? Well, we have things like opportunity, especially job opportunities and economic opportunities. Oftentimes there'll be safety. People can feel safe in a particular region. Maybe that's because other folks have migrated before them, and now they can go into a community where they will feel safer. There might be more stability in a place, and just in general freedom to live one's life as one wants to live it. Might be a pull factor into another region. So this week, we're going to be looking at migration, all of those folks coming to Seattle, as we saw in those two maps. We're going to be looking at push factors first. What was pushing them out of the region or regions that they previously were? What is pushing them out of there? And then what is pulling them to a place like Seattle? So that's what we're doing this week. I'm going to have a quick little discussion question that's just going to simply ask what you think. What is your hypothesis here? And as we'll be going along, you'll be sort of refining that hypothesis. So I'm going to ask you to hypothesize why you think there is that explosive growth in the African-American community here in Seattle. So thank you for listening, and just go look at that discussion question, hypothesize, and then we're going to get the next couple of weeks looking at Seattle demographics started. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you're staying safe, staying sane, and staying well, and I'll see you again in the future. Okay, bye now.